am not a fan of this magical desert. I am not a fan of this magical desert. I am not a fan of this magical desert.
No magical weed-only sign at the entrance.
I think it's a magical sort of trade.
These chocolate walnut brownies have the perfect amount of THC to give you a little euphoria and the CBD to relieve that pain in your ass.
The causal link between endorphins, stimulation of specific receptor sites, and euphoria.
Euphoria, even.
I'm in a state of total euphoria.
I always try and create some tension in my work.
For a party, there sure seemed to be a lot of tension in the air, especially between Terry and Miles.
And what makes New York such a funny place is that there's so much tension and pain and misery and craziness here.
Like a lonely gunfighter, he stands alone, his face etched with tension, his eyes filled with fear, as he waits for the inevitable bell of death to ring.
There's a mood of tension and anxiety here outside Johnson Space Center.
You can choose the most loyal friends, the dream job, the truest love.
Performing with Cirque du Soleil is actually a top 3 dream of mine.
I'm highly...
Our dream was to return home.
Actually, in my dream, I remembered that there was this guy in Australia who cooked his girlfriend and ate her.
Oh, and the drugs. I mean, I tell you, our plane was like a pharmacy with wings.
He never told lies, he never took drugs, and he never cheated on anyone.
My son was never exposed to drugs or pornographic material or any of those things.
Or maybe an imaginary pain because you don't want to go back to prison.
You're basing this whole diagnosis, everything, on the idea that I was slipping him illegal drugs.
My lawyer said that you're going to prison for 20 years, Jordan.
The closest things he had to friends were either imaginary or
The night of the fire, I was at the prison giving a motivational speech on how parolees can turn their lives around.
Can't make lily white kids go to prison for having a couple of blunts.
Still don't know how Hadley wound up in a Chinese prison.
You realize that these people are crooks and they should be in prison?
What would you do if you were sentenced to a prison where half the inmates were put there by you?
Now that was a great way to avoid some of the more unpleasant aspects of prison life.
All you mortgage raping shit should be in prison anyway.
I promise you never have to go back to prison.
Prison worked wonders for Joe.
Prison is not about street gangs. Prison desensitizes you. Make no mistake, we're all in prison. But you and I both know that you'd never see the walls of a prison again if it weren't for me, and that pains me.
No mortgage, just like he said.
Cash, no mortgage.
Mortgage defaults have gone through the roof.
Hello, I'm surveying mortgage owners who are over 90 days delinquent.
Why didn't you tell me money was so tight with the second mortgage?
There are no insurance contracts or options for mortgage bonds.
So mortgage bonds are dog shit. CDOs are dog shit wrapped in cat shit.
Phil was paying off his mortgage on our dime.
She left me with too many chores and a hell of a mortgage.
I have a reverse mortgage on this house.
Yeah, we got a nice mortgage, too.
What does this mean? Do I need to get that mortgage check back?
I guess the mortgage must be tough with just your money coming in. I'll take care of the mortgage now.
Everyone's got a mortgage to pay.
But really, he's doing it for the mortgage.
So you don't need to worry about the mortgage?
Really? You know how high my mortgage is?
Look, you're going to have to take this test, the Washington State Mortgage Brokers exam, but don't freak out. I'll coach you through it.
You've got your average person's mortgage.
So you want to know what the top 20 selling mortgage bonds are. But it would also apply to your payments if the value of the mortgage bond goes up.
I want to buy swaps on mortgage bonds.
Your landlord filled out his mortgage application using his dog's name?
Is he right about the mortgage market? Actually, could I talk to a mortgage broker?
Profits are strong, and the mortgage continues to be the bedrock on which this economy is built.
I currently have reason to believe the mortgage bond market is fraudulent.
You know, turns out I have so much information about the stock market and Wall Street I could...
My hypothesis, within the stock market, there is a pattern. Right in front of me. Playing with the numbers. Always has been.
The only difference is we're not looking at the stock market.
The Wall Street stock market crash has caused a crisis in the American economy.
Craig's in the stock market, and he made a bundle last year. When a girl's desperate.
What's he gonna do with it?
I don't know. But Daggett seemed pretty interested in that mess at the stock market.
Are you suggesting that a cartoon monkey is bringing drugs into our town?
There's no question in my mind there is a complicity in the flow of drugs into this country.
Conspiracy to import drugs into the United Kingdom.
So he brings a brick of drugs into the shower without getting noticed?
House and Senate began making noise about decertification
turning Colombia from an ally in the war on drugs into an enemy.
You bring drugs into my house!
We've been shoving drugs into his system for a disease he doesn't have.
First and least radical being an injection of anti-inflammatory drugs into the penis.
Lopez figured out how Elijah smuggles drugs into the country.
If you think this guy, the one that brought drugs into the house, is right for you, you're a child.
And use the black man to bring drugs into our oppressed white minority communities.
I mean, guns, drugs, money laundering?
Armed robbery, money laundering,
Grand theft auto,
Chinese money laundering.
Sir, there's been speculation that your ability to link banks in South Florida to money laundering efforts of terrorists are actually the result of a whistleblower or the NSA.
White widow, it's all a front for her real trade. Arms dealing, money laundering.
Not to mention fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, state and federal drug laws you've broken.
21 counts money laundering. 1 count obstruction of justice.
For starters, I reorganized their entire financial operation. Budgets, payroll, money laundering, you name it.
HD, you can't be put away twice for money laundering.
That's before they try to jam you up more for money laundering.
Money laundering can get you as much as 20 years. And
Dr. Larkin, my chief focus here is the money laundering.
1 count engaging in conspiracy to commit money laundering. 21.
The feds discovered that his venue was being used as a cover for money laundering.
Wiretappings, burglaries, money laundering, and all the rest of it.
Penal Law 47020, money laundering in the first degree.
Which boy chick will stop the moment they arrest you for money laundering, at which time all your business goes to a criminal attorney.
I do not know anything about any money laundering.
Charles, this place is a front, money laundering or something.
Actually, the money laundering aspect is fairly straightforward.
Bribery, racketeering, money laundering, and various forms of political corruption.
They're responsible for heroin, money laundering, prostitution.
I understand money laundering.
Perfect for money laundering.
Racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering.
Maybe we didn't get them on murder, but we busted their asses on drugs, weapons, and money laundering.
No compliance officers as possible money laundering.
Like, there's no real proof this money laundering even...
But the connections are troubling, especially Underwood.
Would you have any reason to suspect her of money laundering?
She wants $10 million, or she's threatening to come forward with everything she has on my money laundering operation.
Murder, truck hijacking, as well as money laundering are expected to be among the inquiries.
International money laundering, big scale.
It's bribes, money laundering.
Believe me, money laundering ain't what it used to be.
To multiple felonies, RICO offenses, money laundering, conspiracy, accessory after the fact to the murder of federal officers.
Yes, money laundering, whatever! Congressman Leon Kilbride, you are under arrest for bribery, money laundering, and racketeering.
It's perfect for money laundering.
Guy ran a sports and numbers racket out of Hella's Cafe. Parlayed it into loan sharking and that into money laundering.
We can't trust him about that, then how do we know he wasn't involved in a money laundering scheme?
I'm now in charge of money laundering for his entire operation.
You're being extradited for money laundering and racketeering.
Then Dunder Mifflin would need to be a front from money laundering, and there's little evidence of that.
Racketeering, money laundering.
We introduced tagged bills into the chief's money laundering operation by intercepting illegal payoffs.
Until 2001, when the feds grabbed him on money laundering charges. You mean your money laundering scheme that you're using her and me to help you get away with? They got inside Jason's laptop and found the very intricate money laundering operation. The money laundering. Now for perjury.
Anything having to do with money laundering operations or tax evasion schemes, he's in charge of it. The first stage of money laundering is called placement.
I know Underwood lied about the money laundering.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you'd like to keep Larkin's testimony focused on the money laundering.
3 months ago, Mr. Wheatley was apprehended and charged with multiple RICO counts, including money laundering, embezzlement, drug trafficking, and assault.
Hey, I'm unplugging the website, so no more money laundering.
I'm not saying the headline should read money laundering scheme exposed, ! Just that we present the landscape as we currently know it.
Based on her years of experience in money laundering, I suppose. Money laundering?
Raymond admits to the money laundering, puts Frank at the center of this, and says, I knew nothing.
Yes, the Albuquerque office covers everything from drug-related money laundering to interdiction of illicit controlled substances crossing the border.
Since they didn't regulate wire transfers, Panama was the perfect place for the second stage of money laundering, layering.
Flemings is currently under felony indictment for drug trafficking, conspiracy, money laundering, and the disappearance of 2 federal agents.
It's not about money laundering, it's about having control of both ends of the tunnel.
Mr. McIntosh, you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and grand theft. What do you